Welcome to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast, your guide to future tech trends and innovation in a language you understand. Now, over to your host, Neil Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. You know how some days you have bad days where you just sit around welded to your sofa watching Netflix whilst breathing through your mouth loudly? Or maybe that's just me. And other days you feel like singing from the rooftops. Well, today I feel like the latter. And I know this because my wife just said to me, Neil, you're a little bit much today. So I've gone back to my little office and shut the door like a naughty boy and thought I'd chat to you guys and dolls instead. But I am going to tone it down a little bit because I don't want to annoy you as well. Because let's face it, if I upset you and my wife, I could quickly find myself on a downward spiral. But before we begin today's show, I want to ask all the truckers out there a quick question. So bear with me. Rubber duck, this is the Tech Blog Rider, and I want to know if there are any truck drivers listening today. And the reason I ask this is because I've heard a little rumour that they love listening to podcasts on those long drives. So I want to hear from you, especially after listening to today's podcast, because I think you're in for a real treat. Because today's guest is the CEO of XStream Trucking, which is a design and engineering company focused on connected hardware for the commercial vehicle industry. And they also recently announced a huge Series A funding. So I invited Daniel Burrows, the CEO, onto the podcast to talk about a wide array of tech, shipping and logistics topics. But most importantly, how technology is changing all areas within the industry. So buckle up and hold on tight so I can beam your ears all the way to California so we can speak with Daniel Burrows, CEO of XStream Trucking. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little more about who you are and what you do?
Sure, glad to be here. My name's Daniel Burrows, and I'm CEO of XStream Trucking, and we are the world's first active aerodynamic device for long-haul trucks. So I didn't really thought I'd end up in the trucking industry, but turns out there's lots you can do there, and that's what I'm working on right now.
Fantastic. And you did say you never expected to find yourself in the trucking industry, so I've got to go there now. I mean, what's your story behind that and what put you on this path?
Well, it dates back to I'm English by heritage, and I was on a road trip with some friends from college, and we were in America, and I was parked at a truck stop, and there was a truck idling his engine, and I was trying to have a nap, and it woke me up. So I went and knocked on the door and talked to the truck driver, and found out that actually, he lived in the truck. And this was his, there's actually a little bed in the back of the truck with these sleepers, and that was his life. And that was really my first introduction to trucking. And I was like, I was fascinated by it. 70% of what you see around you is probably transported there by truck, and I just knew nothing about it. So as I learned a little bit more about the industry, I wanted to figure out a better way, a quieter, more environmentally friendly way for them to idle their engine to get power for their refrigerator and their air conditioning and things. And so I designed a little generator, but that had already been done. And I started looking at other areas. And then I found aerodynamics is a really important part in trucking. So it really was a serendipity of moments of finding out an industry that sort of sits alongside our normal life, but that we never really see day to day.
It's amazing where those moments of inspiration come from, isn't it?
Absolutely. It was a few years ago, and it's been a journey since to get to from a industry to an idea to a product to trying to scale it up.
And from that story, I mean, XStream Trucking supplies active aerodynamics to the long-haul trucking industry. But for a lot of people listening, they're not going to automatically associate technology with that world. So can you maybe set the scene and tell me a little bit more about how you're using technology to solve problems and transform the industry?
Yeah, so trucking in the United States and worldwide is a huge industry. I mean, in the United States, it's $700 billion. It employs 3 million Americans. It's the most common job in something like 30 out of 50 states. So it's an enormous industry, and technology is playing a huge role in how it's developing over time. And I think that sometimes doesn't get the credit it has. Recently, actually, you see a lot more things about the autonomous trends or electric trucks. But before that, there's all sorts of technology that goes into it. So maybe we'll talk about mine for starters. Just like on some cars, like you have a spoiler that pops up on a Porsche when they increase speed. What I realized is that you could change the truck shape based on the speed of the truck. So you need this big, in the US, this big gap between the tractor and the trailer to turn when you're going slowly. But at highway speeds, you're going straight, and therefore you could close up that gap. And so what we do is we have these panels that fold out to streamline the truck to make it look more like a bullet train when you're on the highway. And when you slow down, they fold away and allow you all your maneuverability around the yard or the parking lot. And so we're the first sort of, that's what I mean, that's what the active in aerodynamics, it's actively changing the shape of the truck based on speed and some other variables.
And fuel is often the largest cost for commercial trucking fleets now. So can you walk me through how your products help these large fleets actually go on to save millions each year?
Yeah, so fuel is one of their largest costs. The driver pay is the other one. And what's little known is that when you're driving down the freeway, you've got this truck full of stuff, of milk or Coke or whatever. And then what you want, the 2/3 of your fuel is actually not spent making the mass move, but actually on the air resistance on the front of the truck. So 2/3 of your fuel is spent overcoming aerodynamic drag. And that's what we make the truck look as smooth and as bullet train like, I guess is the analogy I use, as possible. So that say 1/3 of your cost is fuel and we save 5% of that, that makes a really big difference to their bottom line when their margins are very low in this industry. It's a tough industry.
And you've also recently hit the headlines for securing, I think it was $10.5 million in Series A funding. And that round was led by, I believe, Autotech Ventures and Calibrate Ventures. But can you tell me more about that funding? And ultimately, what's it going to mean to XStream Trucking? And how's it going to help you progress forward?
We're very lucky to have Calibrate and Autotech join us on our journey. We will use the money to expand our ability to manufacture more of these TruckWings and service our customers more, and as well as producing more products for, say, electric or other types of trucks. So there's more engineering and there's operations that we're going to be investing in. We've been on the road since 2016, done a lot of testing, and we've secured contracts with 5 of the largest 10 fleets in North America. And really this money is about how can we service them better? How can we get more of these products out on the road? So when you're driving, you see these TruckWings out there opening and closing and saving fuel. Saving fuel, of course, has 2 things, and I should talk about that briefly if I may. One is the dollars that you save, but 2 is the environmental impact of the fuel savings. We can every gallon of diesel you don't burn is reduction in carbon, but also NOx and SOx and other particulates. So that is one of the reasons why I founded the company, was to help reduce emissions, and that's something that's increasingly important to the world.
And since launching the first road units, like you said, back in October 2016, XStream Trucking has seen a tremendous adoption rate too, with fleets covering, I believe, more than 1 million miles per week, which is just phenomenal. But do you have any other stats that highlight just how much of a difference and a game changer that it is?
Yeah, we like to talk about how that million miles a week really demonstrates that we're working all across the United States in cold weather, in hot weather. And so we're really seeing, increasing adoption, and we're hoping to raise that. I mean, we're hoping we're doing 10 times that per week, in the next year.
Do you have any use cases or client stories that are just enable listeners to understand maybe a before and after picture of the kind of value that the tech is bringing to businesses?
Yeah, I think of 2 of our drivers, Mike and Mary. They are a couple who are married, and they were a teacher and a firefighter. And they actually gave up their those roles and actually became a team driver. So one of them sleeps and the other one drives. And together like that, they cover around 300,000 miles a year together. And this was a way for them to save for retirement and build up a nest egg for their retirement years. TruckWings, if you can put money back into their pocket by saving 5% of their fuel bill, that means their retirement's earlier. That means that they're they can get home sooner. They can achieve their goals. And when you're only making 2 to 3% profit on these things, a 5% fuel increase can increase that profitability by about 50%. So it really makes a big difference to them, and it's great to see them using it.
And can you also share how XStream's technology is influencing the future of logistics too, and reducing carbon footprint? I know you hinted on that a few moments ago, but it's equally as important, isn't it?
It is. So the trucking industry spends $100 billion a year on diesel in the US, and they want to do it as efficiently as possible, obviously, but it's a huge consumer of carbon and natural resources, which we all benefit from, right? We all use it. But if you could do it more efficiently, it really makes a big difference. So here's a stat that I like to use, is that if every truck in North America used the TruckWings, we would save more emissions than the entirety of Singapore through our reduction in carbon.
Wow, that's phenomenal.
So that's my job, and I got to go do that. That's what the $10.5 million is for.
I was just going to say, what excites you about XStream's technologies and the opportunities ahead, but that's something incredibly exciting on its own right, isn't it?
It is, and that I studied physics and I studied climate. I tried to build solar cells, and I wanted to move into something where I could try and build a product that helps our customers, returns money to their bottom line, but also has my own personal contribution to the climate change fight that we're all in. And I didn't want to do it through government incentives or I wanted to do it through a product that our customers want to buy because it helps them every day. And so that's where I think businesses can be can have the maximum benefit, is if they can do good by doing good, if you see what I mean.
And I'm curious, when you think of this industry, a lot of people think of it as being very traditional. Have you noticed any resistance to change or a resistance to bringing technology in, or has everyone been quite welcoming?
I think that it's an interesting. It definitely has that reputation. I think it's unwarranted. I think if you take the mindset of a fleet manager, he's getting inundated by 100 ideas every week by people who are saying, "Look, I've got the latest thing that's going to improve your trucking." And then one fleet manager said to me, "If I did everything that everybody told me, my trucks would make fuel as they went down the road." And I think that we have to realize that from their standpoint, they're getting so many people saying this is better, that is better, that is better. They're not they're open to new ideas, but they're rightfully skeptical and they want to test it. So what we do is we have a data platform for every truck we put out. We show them every week their fuel savings. They see their return on investment, their ROI. They see when it's deployed, how much fuel they've saved, and they can build confidence over time that it's doing what we're saying that it's going to do. And so I've actually, with that approach of being very data centric and working with our customers and explaining the value, we've been very successful in working with the big fleets. I think that sometimes when you have a product that's harder to explain and harder to prove the benefits, it can be frustrating, especially when there are so many different ideas and products out there to make trucking better. So I think it's more of a cautiously optimistic or cautiously skeptical, but when they see something, they go in fast. So some of our customers now have hundreds and hundreds of TruckWings already running in their trucks, and that's great to see.
Fantastic. And looking towards the future, is there anything else that you can share with me today and share with the listeners about your future plans at XStream?
Well, first of all, we want to get to that thing where we're on all the over-the-road trucks in North America. That's our goal. That's our vision. If you're driving more than 80,000 miles a year in your truck, it really makes sense to have a TruckWing. So that's step one. Step two is every one that comes out does come with our telematics box, which tells us all sorts of information about the truck and other fuel economy things that the truck is doing. So how much are you idling, and how is your driver driving, and how is your route optimization? And so we're starting with some of our early customers to think through how we can further help them in the areas that we know a lot about, which is hardware and fuel economy and trucking. And so those we'll build off our areas of expertise, but each one of our TruckWings comes with that box. You get it when you buy the TruckWing, and that box is called the Carbon Connect. And that Carbon Connect, I think, over time, you'll see more products coming out that will help the fleet further increase their efficiencies. So that's and the ideas are really around how do we help the drivers get more money back and end the week more profitably.
And when you're talking about helping the drivers get more money back, everything that you're doing here has got such a global appeal. And I know you're only concentrating on conquering North America at the moment, but looking into the future, do you see expanding this to Europe and other continents too?
Absolutely. And we have, some of our patents are filed internationally. Now, Europe, UK itself, their trucks are not the same setup. In the US, we have this separate tractor trailer setup where there's this big gap between the tractor and trailer. That's not how the UK trucks are set up. So if you look in the UK, you'll see the gap is much smaller. And so the TruckWings aren't as applicable in the UK, but some of the other products that we're starting to build in the Carbon Connect are. So stay tuned on that one. If it's something we can do to help truck drivers in the UK, then we're going to look at trying to do that.
And for anyone that wants to keep in touch with your, stay up to speed with your progress, can you point them in the direction of your website, maybe your social channels? And also, what's the best way of reaching out to a member of your team? If anyone listening or anyone within the truck industry has got any questions they'd like to throw at you guys.
Yes, truckwings.com. So it's TruckWings, WINGS.com. On that, you'll see a little video of our device, which is much easier to see than to try and describe. So please do check that out. It has that has our Twitter handle on there and our sales line as well. And our Twitter handle is just XStream Trucking. Now that one is spelled XStream Trucking. So it's X and then stream is in Airstream Trucking. But you can find a link to that on truckwings.com, as well as if you run a truck, there's a savings calculator and you can look at what the TruckWings could do for your fleet.
Excellent. Well, I'll add a blog post to accompany this podcast episode. I'll put the links on there and I'll also embed a video just so people listening can also visualize the great work that you're doing.
Thank you.
No problem at all. I think it really does help, like you say, bring it to life when you can actually see it as well. And I think we're all visual learners as well as auditory learners now. But more than anything, just a big thank you for taking the time to come on and share your story with me today. Thank you.
Thank you, Neil. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Wow, another great story. And I love how it all began for Daniel too, especially how he was curious about trucks, and that curiosity led him to transforming an entire industry. And I always say that the biggest moments of inspiration can come when you're just sat in your chair, staring out the window, or if you're in a coffee shop somewhere or sat in a field and you're just watching the world go by. But a problem that I'm increasingly seeing is that we don't allow ourselves to do that anymore. If we get those dead moments, we fill it by picking up our smartphone and endlessly scrolling down. And I think there's so much to be said for putting that phone away and just letting your mind wander. Think about what you're having for tea and just let curiosity run free. And we did cover so much ground today too about how aerodynamics and fuel savings in the shipping industry are made possible by this technology, and also how XStream's technology is influencing the future of logistics and reduces their carbon footprint. But over to you, because you're going to have a lot more insights and experience on this subject than I have. So myself and Daniel have said our piece on the day on this podcast. But the way this show works is I'll then like to pass the virtual microphone over to you. Kind of an open mic podcast session where I invite you to share your opinions, your insights, because they're what really matter. And maybe if we all share those ideas, maybe we can change the world just a little bit every day at a time. So please, you can email me directly, techblogwriter@outlook.com. If you want to leave a virtual voicemail, then just get something like WhatsApp and record me a question and I'll play it on the next episode too. You can also find today's episode and all my podcasts over at my website, techblogwriter.co.uk. And also remember, if you're listening to this in a truck, I especially want to hear from you and I want to see your truck, where you're driving, and let me live my life vicariously and let me see the world through your eyes just for a few moments. But don't take that pic whilst you're driving. I don't want that on my hands and get myself in a whole heap of trouble. I'm in enough trouble as it is. Seriously though, I look forward to all your messages and I genuinely appreciate you tuning in and listening to this podcast every day. And I hope you'll join me again tomorrow, where we'll explore another industry and investigate how technology is transforming that too. But that's it for today, so thanks for listening, and until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thanks for listening to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. Until next time, remember, technology is best when it brings people together.